Hello, I'm Booger Boy and I'm learning pixel art. A few weeks ago I found this photo of Dragonite while surfing the web and challenged myself to recreate it in pixel art. Recreations might look simple, but they hide a major challenge. How do you capture all those details when you're limited to individual pixels? Today I'll walk you through my solution that focuses on values first and colors second. These days I've been using a 16 color grayscale palette to do value studies, and with this piece, the first thing I did was block in the biggest shapes with a close value. The goal here isn't perfection, just a solid foundation to tweak later. Having the background wall, grassy field, and foreground pond actually on the canvas gave me a better sense for how big I can make the star of the show, Dragonite. With the 64 by 64 resolution canvas, I had space to work with, but some of the small details, like the claws, require compromise. Another thing that I often have to contend with in pixel recreations like this is the line work. Cartoon and anime style art use lines to break up shapes and show form, but at this size, I usually don't like how line art looks. Instead, the way I convey that change in shape and form is to use the differences in light and shadow or changes in texture as an opportunity to change the value in color. I spruced up the environment with some more details, and now that the values are established, let's move on to the exciting part, adding color. My favorite part of the reference is the cherry blossoms, so I started with those, but quickly shifted to the Dragonite. If the tone of the cherry blossoms or the grass or the background is off, it's not a huge deal, but with something as iconic as this Pokemon, when something isn't right, it's immediately apparent. Therefore, I wanted to get his main colors done first and done right. A quick note on the color is that I avoid using the eyedropper tool and instead try my best to approximate what I see in the reference through the use of the HSV sliders. It adds an extra layer of friction to the process, but it's one of those things that'll pay off in the long run with a more intuitive understanding of color. Earlier I mentioned how I'm not a fan of the line art with a piece like this, and you can see how I used a darker tone to break up the form of the Dragonite in place of line art. The piece still felt a little empty, so I added some more tall grass and detailed the water, but we're getting pretty close to the finished piece, so let's check out the time lapse so far, and then I've got an interesting comparison to show you. Alright, so here's the final image in color, but let's compare the values. It's interesting how the value stage is noticeably lighter than the reference, but when I added the colors, everything got a bit darker. Next, I looked at the colors and saw that the final piece used 32 tones. I didn't set out with a specific palette restriction, but I wanted to see what the image would look like if I reduced the color count. I did this by creating a new palette from Sprite and then ordering the colors by hue. From here, it's just a matter of looking at which colors are close together and see if they serve similar purposes. For example, I had a separate color for the shadow of the rocks in the foreground and the rocky wall in the background. By finding these combinations, I was able to reduce the final color count to 15 in just a few minutes. I could have spent all day playing with the colors, but I get to a point where I'm maybe 80% happy with where I'm at, and I just move on. This mindset prevents me from spending too much time tunneled in on one thing and frees me up to create more art. Overall, this challenge really pushed my understanding of value and color, and I hope it gave you some ideas for your own art. If you like this breakdown, let me know what I should recreate next. Thanks for watching.